The C19 People's Coalition is an emerging civil society collective seeking to ensure that South Africa's response to the COVID-19 crisis is one that is rooted in social justice and democratic principles and recognizes our duty to prioritize those who are most vulnerable, who face the pandemic with hunger, weakened immune systems, and poor access to housing, health care, and social safety nets. The C19 People's Coalition has run a campaign called hashtag Pay the Grants, and this is a critical component of that work. The Institute for Economic Justice is a progressive economic think tank with the objective to provide economic policymakers and social forces with access to progressive economic material as a basis for concrete interventions.
Government's decision to terminate the relief measures is both irresponsible and reprehensible given the socio-economic realities of our country. We believe that this decision must be reversed as a matter of urgency.
Solidarity increases our ability to survive as a nation, and therefore investing in these people as part of Ubuntu, investing in those among us who are left behind is an investment in all of us. And just lastly, as Shahira just reminded us, if we withdraw this investment, we would be asking the women of this country and the girls of this country to bear the burden, because there is nothing that is without a cost. All we'll be doing if we're withdrawing these grants, we would be withdrawing the burden from the shoulders of the state and therefore from the shoulders of everyone, and taking this burden and putting it squarely on the shoulders of women and girls. And that's improper, that's unconstitutional, that's a violation of social justice, but that is something that we would live to regret, because as long as there's injustice somewhere, there can't be sustainable peace anywhere. So on my own behalf and on behalf of the Social Justice Chair, I fully endorse the retention of this grant until the end of the financial year, and then reviewing at that stage, what do we do to make sure that no one is left behind?
We recognize that the 350 rand itself was tokenist, and that's why we in particular happy that the demand of the coalition is that as a stopgap measure, the amount be increased to just over 500 rands, which itself falls way below the poverty line of 1,300 rands. And that's why we continue to march in the streets to demand that the government, without any further delay, must introduce a basic income grant. And our view is that the basic income grant should be above the poverty line. And also the basic income grant itself is not necessarily the end of the road in terms of us addressing the levels of poverty in our country. Anybody who lives on 1,300, in our view, still lives in poverty.
As it is well known that due to COVID-19, over 2.2 million jobs will be lost or already lost. And a lapse in these payments will push many households into deeper distress than before. This means that the 350 grant is clearly helping the people and cannot be just ended without a proper plan in place. The 350 grant is open to applicants who are not beneficiaries of any other social security grant or UIF payment and are not currently receiving income. And there is no guarantee that by the end of October, all these people will have other means or source of income. So the government must ensure that these people are protected from distress, because once they are pushed to poverty, that may lead to increase in crime rate in our country. Therefore, we call upon all the organizations in South Africa and the South Africans to bring their innovative, creative solutions to the possibilities, design, and scale of the big solution.
As equal education, after we did our investigations in the townships and the villages in terms of access to food in the crisis, we saw that there's serious problems there, and that a lot of people in this country go to bed without having eaten. We then were forced to take the Department of Basic Education to court for them to reinstate the school nutrition program. This is the same thing that is happening with a majority of young people. South Africa is the highest youth unemployment in the world, and that a lot of young people are stuck in the streets, are stuck in the villages, and have no access to means of survival. And I think as equal education, we've realized that in all fairness, we must take on this campaign and make sure that the department doesn't take away the grant. But I think we must also emphasize how this grant and who is directed to affectly young people who are under the age of 35 and have no access to education, have no access to work opportunities, and they're being pushed to the streets, they're being pushed to find other forms of survival, while we have a government that is supposed to care for the people, and we have to push the government to maintain the grant until we think around implementing the basic income grant. So we endorse the campaign. We want to mobilize for the campaign as young people to join in the streets to make sure that Department of Social Development reconsiders the decision to cancel the grant.
From our experience as the unemployed people here, you find that the local SASSA offices have been, incapacitated to can be able to assist where people experience problems with their applications, or maybe their follow-up situations. You talk to the local managers, they tell you, as far as these grants are concerned, there is nothing we can do for you. You have to talk to the national or the regional office, which is a problem because most people don't have cell phones. Those who have cell phones do not have the capacity to can utilize them optimally. So which results in a lot of frustration to a lot of people. And again, I find myself having to perhaps highlight one other thing that I feel it's very personal, and it's also a story of many people. There's this assumption from the government, if one has to reflect from how far have we come with this universal basic income grant story, that people that want these grants are people that are lazy, who do not want to work. That's an insult. Personally, I lost my formal employment in 2001. And between 2001 and at least up until 3 years back, I was able to run around and fend for myself. It becomes a daily struggle every day. Sometimes you are lucky, you get enough money. Sometimes it's so difficult. Sometimes it takes you something like 48 hours just to organize 20 rand to feed your family. Because I've got 2 adult children. One is a graduate. Both of them are unemployed. I'm not employed. I still have a bond to pay. And somebody goes around and say, if you give these people grants, you make them lazy. Yes, this is an insult.
We think that if you look to the kind of research that has come through the NIDS CRAM report, as well as the work that the IEJ and other civil society coalitions have done, it's clear that the current grants that are being paid are the only initiative that stand between ordinary people and complete destitution and starvation. We know as community constituency that the research shows that the grants are not anywhere near meeting people's basic needs. We are part of broader ongoing engagement with government through various structures to look at overall comprehensive social security reform.
An estimated 4 to 5 million people have been pulled out of extreme poverty through these crucial social relief of distress grant and caregiver grants. The final point I want to make is that South Africa really has a uniquely high poverty rate given our average income. If we think compared to similar countries with similar amount of average income, we have much higher poverty rate. And that's really inherited from apartheid. It's a social policy choice made by apartheid that was deeply racist in its underpinnings, which disregarded the humanity of Black poor people in this country and said that the high rates of poverty are something that we as a society can live with. The government, in its commitment to the NDP, made a commitment and undertaking to eliminate extreme poverty, to undo the apartheid structure of extreme poverty despite our high income levels. But even by 2017, a Stats SA report has shown that the country has in fact lost ground on the war on poverty. In other words, many years later, by 2015, according to Stats SA, poverty had in fact increased rather than decreased as committed by the NDP. And so the question really remains, how else can we reach the commitment from government to eliminate poverty in the most unequal country in the world, South Africa, if not taking this opportunity, this necessary opportunity to extend the grant system and address poverty?